A checkout page displays 3 plans, and the middle one suddenly feels like the safest choice. Minutes later, the decision feels obvious, even though the underlying value never truly became clearer. This occurs because judgments are built from context, not from a stable internal measuring stick. Tiny cues shift what seems reasonable, and the mind treats that shift as real insight. The cost shows up as overpaying, delaying, or accepting terms that do not align with real priorities. These patterns shape shopping, negotiations, and even personal promises about health, time, and effort. Someone might ignore a better deal because another option makes it look suspicious or excessive. Another person might chase a bonus offer and overlook the slower, more reliable path they already had. Next, you will see comparisons, anchors, free offers, social rules, and self-control traps with practical escapes. This video is inspired by Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely, and subscribe to learn decision patterns you can spot before they steer you. Relativity means that value is judged by contrast, so an option appears good mainly when compared to a less favourable alternative. Without an internal value meter, the mind tends to search for side-by-side comparisons and treat them as if they were the truth. This is significant because a cleverly placed decoy can shift preference toward a target without altering the actual benefits. Once the decoy is introduced, people feel rational in their choice, even though they had previously ignored the same bundle. A magazine offered one option for internet access, another for print only, and a third for both. The print only option matched the bundle price, making the bundle seem dominant and therefore irresistible. The lesson is that preference is often constructed on the spot and then defended as if it were stable. This explains why more choices can lead to more manipulation rather than more freedom and clarity. Remove one option and check if your preference changes, as stability is a signal of real preference. Decide on one absolute requirement first, then compare options to that standard before comparing them to each other. Anchoring means the first number you see becomes a reference point, even when it is arbitrary. After that, arbitrary coherence keeps later judgments consistent with the anchor, so the number spreads its influence. This matters because willingness to pay can be pushed upward or downward by random prompts. It also makes markets look like pure supply and demand, when values were partially shaped by accidental starting points. In one classroom auction, students wrote the last 2 digits of a social security number as pretend prices. Those digits later influenced real bids, and higher ending digits produce much higher offers for the same items. The first number becomes normal, and later prices get interpreted as fair or unfair relative to that starting line. That makes advertising, suggested retail prices, and first offers powerful because they define the initial frame. Set your own anchor range before you shop or negotiate using outside references you trust. Pause before committing, because time helps break coherence and makes it easier to reassess from scratch. A zero price triggers a unique response because free feels like a gain without a corresponding loss. The mechanism is that costs fade from attention, making the decision emotional rather than comparative. This is significant because people often switch away from better options when a weaker one becomes free. Once free is introduced, small price differences no longer feel meaningful, and careful trade-offs disappear. In a choice between chocolates, people preferred the higher quality truffle when both had small prices. When prices dropped and the simpler chocolate became free, many switched, even though the value barely changed. The switch demonstrates that free is not just a small discount, it is a category change in the mind. That is why free trials and bonuses can divert attention from long-term fit and total cost. Slow down when you see free, then list what you give up in time, flexibility, or future commitments. Subscribe to continue learning how free offers hijack evaluation and how to build a calmer decision process that resists them. Social norms thrive on kindness and reciprocity, whereas market norms focus on prices and explicit exchange. Issues arise when a situation shifts frames, as the same action suddenly means something different. This is significant because payment can diminish goodwill, transforming a helpful impulse into a calculated transaction. Once market norms take hold, people often do the minimum required by the price, rather than giving extra effort. When a daycare introduced a late pickup fine, expecting parents to arrive earlier, the fine backfired. Instead, lateness increased, as the fine became a fee that purchased extra time without guilt. Even after removing the fine, behavior did not return quickly, demonstrating how frames can persist. The lesson is that money can crowd out social meaning, even when the payment seems small. Choose the norm before asking for help, and keep your language consistent with that frame. A simple thank you and future reciprocity fit social norms, while clear terms and boundaries fit paid agreements. Procrastination is the act of delaying important work, even when one knows the delay will cause harm later. The reason is weak self-control, where immediate comfort often wins over long-term benefits unless constraints are added. This matters because knowledge alone is insufficient. The plan exists now, but the choice happens later. Without commitment devices, the future self keeps postponing, and small delays compound into missed goals. In one class, students face fixed deadlines, chose their own deadlines, or had no deadlines at all. Performance improved with deadlines, and the absence of deadlines produced the worst results overall. Self-chosen deadlines helped, but people still struggled to enforce them when the hard moment arrived. The lesson is that external structure often outperforms willpower because it locks action to time. Break goals into milestones with specific dates, then add accountability that creates real consequences for delay. Keep the system simple enough to maintain, because consistency matters more than occasional bursts of motivation. The goal is not perfect rationality, but designing decisions to prevent predictable errors from dominating outcomes. Once patterns become clear, choices become less mysterious and more adjustable through simple changes in the environment. Comparisons and decoys can guide preference. Anchors can set price expectations, and free options can simplify evaluations. Social frames can reshape cooperation, and procrastination can stall progress unless commitments are made in advance. These strategies reduce regret by replacing self-blame with clear mechanisms and repeatable interventions. They also improve relationships by establishing the right norms and boundaries, preventing confusion and resentment. Start by removing decoys, setting your own anchor range, and slowing down whenever free options appear. Then build deadlines and accountability, as structure makes follow-through more reliable than motivation alone. Over time, these small guardrails add up, and daily choices align with values rather than impulses. Subscribe to continue building practical guardrails from behavioral experiments, and apply them to money, work, and relationships with confidence.